Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Orchard Report. I am your host, William Trout, and I'm happy to be with you to discuss another week of Buffalo Bills news. Let's get into it. As I said, I am your host, William Trout, and I'm excited to be with you again for another week to discuss Buffalo Bills news and everything there is to know. So, in this episode, we will discuss the new coaching staff additions and how they'll kind of make changes to the structure of the team and how the makeup of the team, etc. We'll talk about Buffalo Bills free agents, pending free agents, folks that's contract has ended, and will either need to look to re-sign or fill in for those snaps. Next, we'll look at Denver Broncos free agents and potential targets from that group. And then lastly, we'll talk about high-level salary cap assessment and how that will affect our offseason. So first things first, we'll talk about the staff additions. And the first individual that we'll talk about is John Igorogwu. He is a linebackers coach with 11 years experience. He is 39 years old, previously with the New York Giants, the Vanderbilt Commodores before that, and then the Bills from 2017 to 2020 as an assistant linebackers coach. And then his first gig was with the Ravens in 2015 and 2016. So a lot of experience from a young coach, and somebody I'm excited to see to get to work with Terrell Bernard and company, and hopefully bring an added dimension to our group that we have up front. So excited to see what he can bring. Next up, we have Jay Valai, cornerbacks coach. He is a 40-year-old out of Wisconsin. He did play there. He played defensive back out of Wisconsin, and he's been coaching for 5+ years. But he did not have a connection to Leonard previously. He started his coaching career at Alabama as a cornerbacks coach and then moved to Oklahoma, where he was an assistant head coach and co-defensive coordinator. And then now is going to be joining the Buffalo Bills staff, like I said, as a cornerbacks coach. Very high energy individual. I've seen online a lot of his videos or coaching clinic videos circulating, and he brings good energy. He's a very knowledgeable individual and someone who I think can bring a good edge and a juice to that room. So really excited to see what he can do with young players like Maxwell Hairston and even Christian Benford. And then the next coach is Drew Terrell as wide receivers coach. He is 34 years old and has 11 years of coaching experience. He played college football at Stanford, and then he was a coach at Virginia Tech as a grad assistant, and then grad assistant at Michigan from 2015 to 2017, where he then moved to the Panthers to be a offensive quality control coach from 2018 to 2019. Moved to the Commanders as a wide receiver coach in 2020 to 2022, and then the last couple of years has been with the Arizona Cardinals. So somebody who can bring some good experience to the young guys and the folks that we'll be bringing on during the offseason, because as we know, this wide receiving room is more than likely going to have a pretty big overhaul. So excited to see what he can do with the guys that we'll bring in, and hopefully he can help them reach their ceilings, because as we know, that's a big thing moving forward is how we can ascend in this wide receiver room with the people that we bring in. So excited to see what they can do, and we've really rounded out the staff well. So I'm happy to see how it plays out under Joe Brady's tenure. Next, we'll discuss some Buffalo Bills free agents, well, all the Buffalo Bills free agents, and how that's going to kind of impact the roster and the offseason. So let's get into it. We've got edge Joey Bosa, who, as we know, was a big one. He was supposed to bring some energy and some juice to that edge, and hopefully bring some impact in the playoffs. But as we know, that didn't really come to fruition. We have interior defensive line Daquan Jones, who's been a starter for multiple years and made an impact, so he'll be a big one. Center Connor McGovern, who I personally don't want to see go, so that's a very big piece right there. Interior defensive line Larry Ogunjobi, who we brought in to be impactful, but really didn't hit the mark on that one. Linebacker Matt Milano, as we know, massive piece Not necessarily the last couple years, but definitely this past year, and somebody that we're going to have to look to fill in for if we don't bring him back. Edge, AJ Epinesa, starter since or not a starter, but a big piece since he's been drafted by the Bills. I don't necessarily know if they'll bring him back in this new system, but if the money's right, I could see it. Left guard, David Edwards. He's another massive one for our continuity up front. He's huge to the communication of the offensive line, checking the mic, knowing the keys, being able to communicate to Josh and the other offensive linemen. So it's going to be hard to keep both he and Connor, but it is a pretty big priority for me if we can make it work. Next, cornerback Tre'Davious White, as we know, who's been a big piece, especially this past season, in the kind of platoon with Maxwell, and someone who could really, I think, solidify that room if we want to look to bring him back at the right price. Quarterback Mitch Trubisky, as we know, Josh is one of his best buddies in that room. So, I mean, if he wants to come back, I'm all for it. Safety Damar Hamlin, fullback Reggie Gilliam, another big one, starting fullback and somebody who brings a huge presence on offense, but also in all phases of special teams. Cornerback Cam Lewis, very versatile, but I don't know. Is he really going to fit the new scheme? We'll find out. Linebacker Shaq Thompson, I would absolutely love to have him back, to have that veteran presence and to have that continuity going into Jim's scheme. He stated that he has had experience in a 3-4, so I think that would, if he could make it work, I would love to see that happen. Wide receiver Brandon Cooks, I know he didn't have a long run with us, but he was impactful. I know he did have some drops, but he also got open, and he seemed to be building a rapport with Josh. So I personally wouldn't mind him coming back for the right price. Interior defensive line Jordan Phillips, safety Jordan Poyer, kicker Matt Prater, safety Darnell Savage Jr., safety Sam Franklin, but he's really just mostly face special teams. Punter Mitch Wisnowski, wide receiver Gabe Davis, who sadly with that ACL it's going to be tough to justify bringing him back. Linebacker Balin Spector, D-line interior defensive line Fidarian Mathis, who played a lot of snaps down the stretch and actually showed well in my opinion. I wouldn't mind bringing him back in maybe the practice squad as some depth. Right tackle Ryan Vandermark, and then right tackle Alec Anderson / do everything as the 6-0 lineman. So outside of Connor and David, there's not a ton of huge impact players that we'll be losing, but still a lot of snaps to fill. And a lot of different conversations to be had for this staff. I'm curious to see how they go on a number of these. Like I said, I'd love to have Connor McGovern and David back. Would love to have Shaq back. Brandon Cooks for the right price, I would have back. I definitely would have Sam Franklin back as a special teams ace if he would like to do so. But for the most part, I think I'm good with moving on for a large number of these individuals and seeing what we can find, maybe in other free agencies, additions, and through the draft. But it is going to be a tough thing to balance, especially with losing so many snaps. So those are the free agents for the Buffalo Bills going into the offseason that we need to keep in mind. Next, I want to talk about the Denver Broncos free agents, and I want to do so because, as I stated, the new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator are from the Denver Broncos organization, both Jim Leonard, DC, and Pete Carmichael, OC. So these are just names that, since they are expiring contracts for the Broncos, it's good people to keep in mind as folks we could bring in to help bring in those new schemes to Buffalo. So let me just go through these names. We have John Franklin Myers at interior defensive line. We've got linebacker Alex Singleton, tight end Adam Troutman, safety PJ Locke, linebacker Justin Stranad, and then the last two, which they're on there, but I don't know how realistic these would be Michael Burton at fullback and then left tackle Jaron Christian. But the guys I would really want to keep an eye on would be John Franklin Myers, Alex Singleton, PJ Locke, and Justin Stranad on the defensive side of the ball, with Jim coming in. I think John Franklin Myers is a good five tech type of defensive line, someone who can be stout up front and kind of give you a good firm presence. He's not going to be super bendy, but like I said, somebody who can just give you a firm presence and be strong at the point of attack. And we do also know him previously from the New York Jets. Next would be Alex Singleton. Really the linebacker duo of Alex Singleton and Justin Stranad. With the state of our linebacker room, I really think it'd be prudent to bring in one of these guys, and kind of because they do have, like I said, they have the knowledge of the scheme. They're thumpers. They hit, and they're very very cerebral. So I think these could just be guys that you could bring in, and they would just help the evolution into this new defense for everybody around them. Because at the linebacker role, you kind of are the quarterback of the defense, and they could kind of be Jim Leonard's eyes and ears on the field. So I think that's some names that we want to keep an eye on, especially at the linebacker room. That could be additions. And then the next big one would be PJ Locke next to Cole Bishop. I think he would be a fun addition at safety. And he's not like a high-end safety, but he's somebody who can give you a good floor, and who I think, like I said, similar to the linebacker room, will bridge that gap as far as knowledge in that perspective. So some names to keep an eye on as we move into the free agency period, as potential additions to help bridge that gap when we're learning these new systems. Specifically on defense. All right, and lastly, I do want to talk about the high-level salary cap assessment, or just kind of where we are at this point as we currently stand. So the NFL has come out and announced that the projected 2026 cap range, so we don't have an official number yet, but we do at least have a range, will be anywhere from $301.2 million to $305.7 million. So a pretty big jump. I think it's about close to like 8 to 9%, I think, and depending on what number you're looking at. So it'll give us room to make some moves. So let's talk about where we currently stand. So our total cap liabilities as a team, every player, will be $319.5 million, which will put us at about $13 million over. But the way the NFL does it in the offseason is they only assess or account for the top 51 players on your roster, because you do have 90 slots. They're only going to count against you the top 51. So if we're looking at that number per over the cap, it is $310.2 million for our top 51, which is about $6 million over. So not in a terrible spot, but we are in a spot where we're going to need to make some moves to be able to get in a position to feel comfortable with where we're at. And if you're really interested in wanting to know the nitty gritty around anything salary cap, I would highly recommend you going to check out Cover One on X, and checking out Greg Tomset, who is a big resource for me for all things salary cap. Especially when it pertains to the Buffalo Bills. He's a great resource and a great point of knowledge. He's taught me a lot of things when it comes to likely to be earned, not likely to be earned, a lot of the nitty-gritty stuff with the salary cap. So if you are interested in learning about that, I would highly recommend you reaching out to him or looking at his work. I'm just going to be kind of giving more of a high-level understanding of where we are, such that you can know if we're going to be able to make moves or not, and kind of get a general sense. So just by doing some releases of some pretty obvious players, which in my mind would be a player like Curtis Samuel, who you can save $6 million for cutting, a player like Taylor Rapp, who you can save $3.1 million from cutting, and even sadly a player like Ty Johnson, you can save like 2.5. You could save about $10 million with those guys, and which would put us in the green. And then if you look at restructure candidates for our big four, so like Josh Allen, Dion, Spencer, and Ed, you can save another 43 million on top of that just by doing basic restructures of those contracts. So that can get us from anywhere. Not if you don't want to pull every lever, you can get around like 30. And if you really want to open things up, and because we have a massive move to make, we could get to about 55 million if we wanted to pull all those levers. So we do have good room to make moves. It's not as bad as it's been in the past. We've had years where it's been very grim. So we do have the ability to make moves, and like I said, through these mechanisms, we will. You can expect that these will happen, and this is how we're going to make ourselves in the green so that we can make moves this offseason. So a lot of stuff to look forward to. A lot of change that's going to be happening at One Bills Live. It's an exciting time to follow along and see how things are going to play out. And I'm happy that you've chosen Orchard Report to get your Buffalo Bills news and your fix in. So thank you so much for checking me out and checking out the channel. I'm happy to talk Buffalo Bills content every week. And please be sure if you feel so inclined to like, share, and comment on the episode, and subscribe to the channel if you're liking what the content we're putting out. And hope to see you next time. Go Bills as always, and thanks again for checking us out.